Hello MotoGP fans, welcome back to ZNGP Today. Jorge Martín of Pramac Racing secured a thrilling victory in the sprint at the Australian Grand Prix, but not without feeling the pressure from a hard-charging Marc Márquez in the closing stages. How Martín's early lead and strategic thinking helped him to hold on to the win. After a second-place finish in the sprint race at Phillip Island, Marc Márquez reflected on his battle with Jorge Martín and the challenges he faced. Marquez's comeback and his thoughts on the main race. Pecco Bagnaia faced a challenging sprint race at Phillip Island, finishing fourth. With the MotoGP World Championship still up for grabs, Bagnaia reflects on his performance and discusses his stance on team orders. Phillip Island witnessed a dramatic crash that left both Marco Bezzecchi and Maverick Viñales out of the race. In a battle for fifth position, the two riders collided, resulting in a high-speed accident. Don't forget to click subscribe button and the bell icon for MotoGP news update. Jorge Martín put on a stellar performance during qualifying, taking pole position ahead of Marc Márquez. His strong start in the sprint race saw him lead from the opening lap, capitalizing on Marquez's wide run at turn 1. While Marquez dropped to 8th, Martín managed to build a significant lead early on. For sure, right now Marc was really equal to me in terms of pace, but he was a bit unlucky at the beginning of the race. Quote from Martín. Martín quickly opened up a 3.2-second gap by the 8th lap, after Marquez recovered to second place. Despite controlling the race from the front, Martín remained cautious of the looming threat behind him. As the race reached its final stages, Martín kept a close eye on Marquez's progress. Although his lead was comfortable, the Spaniard admitted to feeling some anxiety with a few laps to go, knowing that Marquez could still catch up. I was a bit scared about Marc because there were still 3 laps, 3 seconds, maybe he was the one able to catch me. Ultimately, Martín managed to extend his lead slightly to secure victory by 1.520 seconds, but he acknowledged that Marquez's presence kept him on edge throughout the final laps. Like most of the field, Martín opted for the soft rear tire during the sprint race. While it worked well for him on Saturday, he remains uncertain about whether it will be the best choice for Sunday's Grand Prix. The lack of long-run data has left tire selection as a major question mark heading into the main race. For sure it was good today. The last few laps I felt already the drop. We didn't have time to try the medium, so maybe tomorrow's warm-up will be important. Ducati's engineering team will play a key role in helping Martín and his fellow riders make the best tire choice for the race, with the medium compound potentially offering more durability. One of the major challenges Martín faced during the race was adapting to the changing conditions on the track. He noted that the variability in grip and corner behavior made it difficult to settle into a consistent rhythm, forcing him to constantly adjust his riding style. It was really inconsistent, so every corner was really different. You need to adapt really fast. But overall I'm super happy and we will try to be ready for tomorrow, Martín concluded. With a 16-point lead in the championship standings, Jorge Martín's sprint victory at Phillip Island was a crucial step in his title bid. Now, the focus shifts to the main event on Sunday, where the battle with Marc Márquez and Pecco Bagnaia promises to be intense. Marc Márquez's sprint race didn't start as he had hoped, with the Gresini rider dropping from 2nd to 8th in the opening laps. However, he displayed his trademark determination, climbing back through the field to secure a second-place finish. Speaking to DAZN after the race, Marquez admitted that a miscalculation at turn 1 cost him valuable positions early on. It was completely my mistake in not calculating, especially in that first corner. I went long. I was able to solve it by making the podium with this second position, but this aftertaste remains because at least we had the pace to fight until the last lap with Jorge Martín, Marquez told by Motosan. Marquez's recovery saw him make several impressive overtakes, which did not go unnoticed by his former teammate Jorge Lorenzo, who praised the moves during his commentary. During his comeback, Marquez executed several thrilling overtakes, including moves on Maverick Vinales and Brad Binder. When congratulated by Lorenzo on DAZN, Marquez humbly broke down some of his key moves. "I overtook Vinales first on the outside and then on the outside. I overtook Binder on the outside on lap 4 and on the inside on lap 6. Despite the setback at the start, Marquez's ability to recover reminded everyone why he remains one of MotoGP's greatest riders. With a long race still to come, Marquez is already focusing on what lies ahead. Both he and Jorge Martín are the clear favorites for Sunday's race, and Marquez is well aware of the challenge Martín poses. Jorge is very explosive. The first 2 or 3 laps are where he always makes the difference. Then it's true that with used tires is when I feel better." Marquez knows that his strength lies in managing worn tires, and he will need to be at his best to keep up with Martín's early race pace. Adapting to the changing conditions and managing tire wear will be critical to his chances. Tire management will be one of the key factors for Sunday's race. As the track and weather conditions in Phillip Island are known for being unpredictable, both riders and teams are still gathering crucial data. Marquez emphasized the importance of managing tire wear, particularly in the closing stages of the race. "When you have a lot of explosiveness at the beginning, there is no other option than explosiveness tire use. And that is where you have to manage the tire well tomorrow, especially in the last few laps," Marquez concluded. With limited information from Michelin and the teams, the tire choice remains a big question mark for all riders. For Marquez, it will be essential to conserve enough grip to make a final push in the closing laps. With a strong performance in the sprint race and valuable lessons learned, Marc Márquez is now ready for Sunday's showdown at Phillip Island. The battle between him and Jorge Martín promises to be one of the highlights of the MotoGP weekend. After finishing 4th in today's sprint race, Pecco Bagnaia admitted that it was a difficult outing. Despite his efforts, he couldn't catch Jorge Martín, and both Marc Márquez and Enea Bastianini managed to overtake him during the race. Speaking to DAZN, Bagnaia explained his struggles with the bike setup and the windy conditions. "I was fast this morning in the wet, but I didn't feel good on the bike in the dry. With so much wind, the changes we made yesterday didn't help me. We need to do a restart and try something in the warm-up. I've already seen the data and I think we have a good idea." Quote from Bagnaia. Despite pushing to close the gap to Martín, Bagnaia had to adjust his approach due to issues with the front end of his Ducati. Bagnaia's attempts to chase Martín were cut short by his difficulties with the wind and the front end of the bike. He also found himself overtaken by Marc Márquez and Enea Bastianini, with the latter finishing ahead of him, raising questions about potential team orders within the Ducati camp. However, Bagnaia was clear that he doesn't intend to ask for such assistance. "Marquez was ahead of me and Enea is fighting with Marc in the championship. At the moment it suits Bastianini to do what he does, because next year he will leave. I have never asked for team orders, and I will not do it." Despite the pressure of the title fight, Bagnaia remains committed to racing without relying on team support. One of the main challenges for Bagnaia in today's race was the strong wind, which impacted his ability to control the bike in the corners. The wind caused the front end of his bike to lift, making it difficult to maintain his lines. Bagnaia tried different setup options during qualifying but didn't find the stability he needed. "I have a lot of problems with the wind because the helmet has a sail effect, so I was going wide in all the corners because the front was lifting up." Bagnaia hopes to make further adjustments in the warm-up session, with the goal of finding a better balance for tomorrow's race. With Sunday's race still to come, Bagnaia is focused on getting as close to Jorge Martín as possible. He acknowledges that Phillip Island isn't one of his best circuits, but he remains determined to give it his all. "The objective for tomorrow is to try to be as close as possible to Jorge and see what happens." Tire strategy will also be a crucial factor in the main race. Bagnaia noted that he experienced significant tire degradation in the sprint, while Martín seemed to manage his tires more effectively. Bagnaia plans to analyze Marco Bezzecchi's data, as the Italian was the only rider to use a medium compound tire and showed good pace. I saw Martin's data and he didn't have any tire failures, but I did, already on the 6th lap. We have to look at Bezzecchi's data. I don't rule it out for tomorrow, Bagnaia concluded. Pecco Bagnaia faces an uphill battle as he prepares for Sunday's main race at Phillip Island. With setup challenges and tire management to consider, the Ducati rider will need to be at his best if he wants to close the gap on Jorge Martín in the championship standings. The Australian GP saw Marco Bezzecchi start strongly, competing for the podium in the early laps. However, as the race progressed, Bezzecchi began to lose positions. First, Pecco Bagnaia and Marc Márquez overtook him, followed by Enea Bastianini, dropping Bezzecchi to 5th place. It was here that he engaged in a heated battle with Maverick Viñales for 5th position, with both riders swapping places multiple times. Viñales made a decisive move at the end of the straight, overtaking Bezzecchi once more. But what followed was a terrifying crash. Bezzecchi, while braking, clipped the rear of Viñales Aprilia, sending both riders flying off their bikes and rolling for meters in the gravel. Maverick Viñales, visibly upset after the crash, was quick to express his frustration. Upon getting up, he gestured angrily toward Bezzecchi before heading to the medical center. Viñales later explained to DAZN that he had lost sensation in his left hand, which caused him considerable concern. I was scared because I had lost sensitivity in my hand, Viñales shared after the medical check. Fortunately, after examination, Dr. Chart assured that Viñales had no serious injuries, only a slight pinch in his left elbow. On a neurological level, everything is fine. He's only suffered a small pinch in the elbow and nothing more. Quote from Dr. Chart. Marco Bezzecchi, meanwhile, took the brunt of the impact and required further medical evaluation. Despite not losing consciousness, doctors decided to transfer him to the hospital for radiological tests to rule out any serious injuries. Bezzecchi had a high-energy fall. His examination at the medical center is normal, but due to the severity of the crash, we need to conduct further tests at the hospital. He is conscious and oriented. Quote from Dr. Chart. As the crash dominated headlines, Jorge Martín secured a commanding victory in the sprint race, marking his return to winning form after a few challenging rounds. Martín managed to keep a strong pace despite windy conditions, which proved challenging for many riders. With the dramatic crash behind them, attention now turns to tomorrow's race, where Jorge Martín will aim to consolidate his points lead while Marquez, Bastianini, and Bagnaia look to mount a challenge. Stay tuned for more updates from Phillip Island. Thanks for watching ZNGP Today, and this is your MotoGP news update. See you in the next video.